Okay. Should be live in just a moment. So good morning. Morning, everyone. How y'all doing today? What's going on? Let's see. This is just like I said, just wanted to get on here this morning for the most part to do just a quick Bible study, man. Just to talk to the people, see what y'all up to, see what y'all got going on. And yeah, just pop through Ecclesiastes chapter 1. This is something that I was going through last night, something I was thinking about, and I was like, this would be the perfect opportunity to have like a Bible study session. And for those who don't know, in the Bible, there are different subsets. Like all of the 66 books are popped into different categories. And the book of Ecclesiastes falls under what people would consider wisdom scripture because it's not necessarily related to like the history of the Bible and to the whole story, but it's something that's in there that was not only practical in a way that it teaches you how to live, but it also opens up your understanding into more of what God wanted us to be, like how he wanted us to interact with life, and just how we're supposed to view him in general. And Ecclesiastes is one of the books that kind of focuses on that topic because here, this is just simply King Solomon, one of the wisest kings that ever lived, like reflect on life, reflect on God, reflect on resources, reflect on just the things that we see in everyday life. And I think that this is such a beautiful book in the sense of this is a man who had everything, lost everything, and then at the end he like looks back on his life and he really deals with many of the issues that most of us deal with today. And so that's why I wanted to kick it off with this chapter. And like I said, this isn't necessarily like a series or anything. This is just like one of those things where we just got to see where it goes. And I wanted to bring you all like on this journey with me, even as I like personally study through the Bible, because I think that, as we simply have these discussions, that it'll open up like your mind to, life and the way that you view things, the success and fame and all those other things, and really help put life and the things that you're doing into perspective and where you truly want to go and ultimately what you want to leave behind and what all of that looks like, moving forward. So, as I said, that more or less is like the overview of what we're doing here today. Of course, if you want to join the discussion, I'm going to post the link in the comment section below. So feel free by all means to pop on here at any point in time. And yeah, we'll just go from there. Okay. With that being said, as I'm getting set up, if you have any questions for me at all, any comments, any things like that, please be sure to drop them in the comment section. And if you happen to catch the replay, you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please be sure to drop them in there too. And I would love, because I would definitely love to like address them, talk about them, and simply have a discussion because ultimately everyone, that's what I'm here for. That's what Wisdom in Christ is here for, to help people have a closer relationship with God and to find joy in the life that we live in, freedom, of course, most importantly, in the God that we serve. So that's what we're here for. So with that being said, let's go ahead and pop over to the actual Bible and we're going to get this thing started. And before I even do this as well, I'm also going to share this to a few more places. So y'all bear with me and yeah. We'll get this thing started. So with that being said, though, how y'all doing this morning? How y'all feel? What y'all up to? Because it's definitely Saturday morning. It's a gorgeous morning, I might add. And it's definitely a morning where I'm going to be like cleaning around the house and stuff like that. So it's going to be beautiful. I don't know if I'm going to be old school and pop the gospel music on because, people used to grow up. They definitely used to listen to the gospel music early Saturday, Sunday morning. Like, you're going to be cleaning that or like old school, like R&B, like 90s R&B. People used to like blast that stuff. I know my mom definitely used to keep Usher like 8701 in the rotation. So, whatever you're doing this morning though, just make sure you have a great morning. Make sure you get outside at some point in time in the day and enjoy this beautiful morning that we have the gracious opportunity to be a part of. And so I don't know, y'all. With that being said, like I said, the video should be shared off into the group. And yeah, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so as you can see here, right, This is Ecclesiastes chapter 1. And as I mentioned before, Ecclesiastes is what we consider wisdom scripture. Okay, so this isn't necessarily tied to a story in the Bible, but more or less this is a book with a common theme of talking about life in general and typically how our perspective should be aligned. And so here, King Solomon he'll talk about justice, he'll talk about fame, he'll talk about wealth, he'll talk about relationships, he'll talk about literally everything that we deal with today, which is why I wanted to personally dive into this book because, every now and then as I'm going through life and I reflect on the things that I'm doing and particularly where I'm going, like I love looking at this book to help give me a perspective of, what I should actually be doing and also what God desires for my life to look like. And so we're going to kick this off by reading this first few verses and just giving a reflection. And for those who don't know, I typically use the verse by verse Bible study method, which more or less, in my opinion, is the best form of Bible study that you could have, because here you're literally going down verse by verse. You're looking at the words, looking at the phrases, and you're trying to make sense of what that verse actually means, how you can apply it to your life, and then also how it relates to the bigger part of the story that's being told and the bigger elements of our faith. And so if you don't know about that method, I'll definitely make more videos on it in the future about it. But for today, I'm just going to give you like a literally interactive walkthrough of what that Bible study method looks like. And we're going to talk about life in general and how things work. And so here you see in verse 1, it says, "The words of the preacher, the son of David, king in Jerusalem. Vanity of vanities, says the preacher, vanity of vanities, all is vanity." And the beautiful thing about this here is that he just opens up, right? Literally, he introduces himself and then he begins to say that life is vanity. All right. And so one of the things that I do love to look at here is the word vanity, and vanity simply means vapor. It means breath. It means, emptiness. And it's so interesting because, there at some point, there really is no better way to open up a book than to talk about life itself as vanity. And I guess when you look at it from like a holistic view, you could make the argument to some extent that life is emptiness, because when you look at the things that we do on a daily basis, when you look at, our jobs, you look at our life, you look at how we relate to other people in society, it seems like we kind of go through a cycle, right? Like everything more or less, like there's really no meaning behind it. And because if we achieve goals or whatever, there's always going to be something to do. Once we overcome like a struggle in life, there are going to be more struggles to overcome. If we have a great point in our relationship, right? The next day the relationship can fall apart and, we're questioning why we even got it in the first place. And, those are just like small examples. But, at the same time, like I can see, why he would say life is vain and life is empty if there's no greater picture, if there's nothing bigger to focus on and to keep you motivated and inspired to move forward. And I believe he's going to explain that as we kind of go through here. And he's going to start from verse 3. We're just going to continue like, what does man gain by all the toil which he toils under the sun? Yeah, he is going here. He says in verse 4, "A generation goes, a generation comes, but the earth remains forever. The sun rises and the sun goes down and hastens to where it rises. The wind blows to the south, it goes around to the north, and around goes the wind, and on its circuits the wind returns. All streams run to the sea, but the sea is not full. To the place where the streams flow, there they flow again." And for now, I'm going to stop there. But as you can see through these few verses, once again, Solomon is talking about, number one, he opens up the case or the question, like, what do we gain by all of the toil, by all of the labor that we have under the sun? And it's interesting because, as I said before, as we go through like our path of life, the question that you have is, what is the meaning to all of the work that we do? What is the purpose behind, waking up each morning, working on our jobs or our businesses to take care of our families? Like, what's the purpose behind all of these things? And it's so easy to, once again, get lost in the life and get lost in the day-to-day tasks. And he kind of explains that as he goes through verse 4, right? Like a generation goes and a generation comes, but the earth remains forever. And when you look at, our life in general. We have our generation right now. We have a generation that came before us, and then we have like the younger generation that's coming up, and we all have like our own thoughts, our own ideas, our own cultures, our own beliefs and values. And at one point in time, like we have like what you would call like rulership or whatever. Like we have the power to dictate like what society looks like, how society feels about certain things. But eventually like our ideals and stuff pass on and give weight and power to the generation that's coming before us. So 20 years from now, like our generation is going to be subject to whoever comes behind us. And the whole time while we're doing this and going through these cycles and phases, the larger world around us is still the same. Like the world is still, sun is still rising, moon is still rising like during the days. Like everything is continuing to move forward. And it seems like it's relatively unchanged. Like we can't change those things. And I believe that's probably why Solomon goes and he talks about, the sun rises and it goes down and hastens to the place where it rises. He talks about the wind, how it blows from the south and goes around to the north. And it continues to go around in this circle or this circuit, because these are things that truly, truly, truly do not change. You get what I'm saying? And it's just so crazy to see that that's how life is. That's how the path and the journey that we go on like happens. But anyway, as we continue to go through here, one of the things that did kind of catch my eye, even as we're going through, is the one down here in verse 8, because he says that all things are full of weariness, and the man cannot utter it. The eye is not satisfied with seeing, nor the ear filled with hearing. What has been is what will be, and what has been done is what will be done, and there is nothing new under the sun. And the thing that's so interesting here, even as we go through this Bible verse, everyone, is that, he's saying that the eye is not satisfied with seeing. He's talking about now how it shifts from the focus of looking at things come and go and us not really having an impact on the world itself and how things operate, to us not being satisfied with, the things that we see, the things that we do, because we're always searching for more. We're always searching for better. We always want to be better and improve ourselves. And while there's nothing like on a fundamental level wrong with that, of wanting to be better, of wanting to improve our lives, it can be, wearisome. Like it could be tiring, always 24/7 trying to figure out how we could be better, how can we improve our lives, instead of just simply sitting down and enjoying things for what they are. And just being able to feel free and to just be, instead of doing all the time. And like I said, that's why really for the most part I wanted to go through this book, because a lot of the stuff that we deal with in life on a daily basis, even now, is like being covered in this first chapter. And this here is just, once again, just questioning the meaning of life itself and why we do the things that we do. And here he's talking about even how the trends kind of go back in verse 9, where it says what has been is what will be, and what has been done is what will be done, right? Because he talks about like the trends of life, because even in like our generations, in our culture, like things that were popular like in the 70s or the 80s or even back in the 20s, right? They always find a way to recycle into the times that we're in right now. And we see that in places all the time, even in like the film industry, because most of the movies we see today, they aren't like original movies. They're movies that have been remade from stuff that was made in the early to late 1900s. And it's just interesting to see how, we'll take something old and give like a modern day take on it. But at the same time, the narratives and the stories that were created are relatively unchanged. And it just kind of introduces the idea that, nothing is truly new, which is why he starts at verse 10 and he says that, is there a thing of which it is said, see, this is new? It has been already in the age before us. There is no remembrance of former things, nor there be remembrance of later things yet to be among those who come after. And it's just showing that how even here, once again, like although we have like these things in life and society that appears to be new, these are things that have already been done, that we either go back and recycle, or things that we've completely forgot about over the course of history, and then we create it as if it was something new. Because even with most of the technology that we see today, even the computer and stuff that's sitting before me, like these things have been around since like the 30s. And there have been people who have come up with theories of how this stuff will work well before, humanity had the technology to even produce stuff like this. And so it's just interesting looking at life and seeing how, once again, nothing that we do is truly new. There are no ideas that are truly original, but instead, they're built or based off of something else that has already been since the foundation of time. And even when you look at, once again, stuff even like the wheel, like I was talking about the other day about how sometimes you kind of have to reinvent the wheel. The wheel for the most part in history has been unchanging. The only thing that's really changed fundamentally about the wheel and modes of transportation is, the technology surrounding it, because well before we had cars and stuff like that, people were making wheels out of cement, and then it went to like rubber tires and stuff that we see today. And, like I said, it's just interesting to see how, things evolve over time, and even in our lives and things regarding like business, regarding like family, regarding relationships, like they were having the same problems today people was having thousands of years ago. We have to live with each other. We have to learn and communicate with one another. We have to share our feelings with each other and value and appreciate the people in our lives. And that's stuff that has not changed, regardless of how much, everything else has evolved around us, regardless of how, progressive we believe we are as a society. Everything is still relatively the same. We're still dealing with the same problems humanity has always dealt with. And I think that's what's so beautiful, even as we study and go through like this Bible verse and these chapters, because it's just showing us that even with this being thousands of years old, that the world is relatively unchanged for what it is today. But with that being said, I want to go ahead and move just a little bit further and talk about, once again, like the process of life and how thing goes. And we're going to pick up here in verse 12 where he says, I, the preacher, have been king over Israel and Jerusalem, and I have applied my heart to seek and search out by wisdom all that is done under heaven. It is an unhappy business that God has given to the children of man to be busy with. I have seen everything that is done under the sun, and behold, all is vanity and a striving after the wind. And so here, after Solomon opens up this bold preposition or proclamation that, the world is vanity, the world is emptiness, the world is never changing, and, the work that we do here is useless, he now begins to tell us that, everything here in this world from his personal perspective is vanity, and it's like a striving after a wind. And when I think about, that phrase in particular, I think about literally the wind that we have here, because wind blows all the time, but we really don't know where the wind is coming from, and we don't really know where the wind is going. And then on top of that, right, although we feel the wind, although we know that the wind is around us, we can't tangibly catch the wind ourselves. And he describes life as being just like that. When you look at time and values, and you look at even the money that we spend on a day-to-day basis, we can't physically grasp those things at all, because we're constantly in a state where we're using things. We're constantly in a state of movement. Everything is always moving forward. And if we're not gaining something out of life, then we're losing something in our lives. And even when you look at the cycle of life as a whole, if we're not growing and living and evolving, then we're starting to die off slowly. And it's like, I know that kind of sounds depressive, but essentially, like, that's what Solomon is saying here in this verse. And he's really, more or less, everyone, as I said so many times, even through this Bible study, is trying to figure out like what life is and if it's something that we can truly grasp. And I think he sums that up perfectly in verse 15, because he says that what is crooked cannot be made straight, and what is lacking cannot be counted. So essentially, we see life evolve the way that it is, but, the core of it is there's only so much we have control over, and there's only so much that, we can truly change, which I think is what he means by what is crooked cannot be made straight. So some things are just the way they are. We can't necessarily, bend the laws of nature or bend the laws of, things that have already been without some radical form of change or without some huge resistance. And we could go into religion, we can talk about politics, you can talk about social issues. You can name almost any category across any field or any idea and come to the same conclusion with this one statement. And then the other thing that's so interesting is that he says, and what is lacking cannot be counted. And this here, it immediately makes me think about wealth, and it makes me think about, our pursuit for, having more, the pursuit of stability, the pursuit of making like 6 or 7 figures or 8 or 9 figures, the pursuit of making sure that, we have all that we need, not only for ourselves, but for our families and for our generations to come. And I know that that has been, a big thing, particularly in our community over the past few years or the past couple of decades. But the thing it also makes me think about is, what's the true end goal behind it? Like, are we simply going after money and wealth because, it's the thing we think is going to create security, or do we really believe there's something greater behind it? Is there a greater goal behind the stuff that we're doing? Because even when you look at the evolution of the economy, at every point in time, there's always a recession, and the money that people have accumulated typically devalues like tremendously. And then you kind of go through like an economic reset, which is kind of what we're seeing in our world right now. And it's something that is going to continue to evolve, over the next couple of years, because we've already seen, and I don't know if you all keep up with like Silicon Valley and like the tech space, but the bank up there is like failed, and they've already laid off, like the major tech companies have laid off like thousands of people. And I can only imagine like what the implications of this bank failing is going to do for, thousands of other people that are out there that thought their jobs might have been secure. And it's just something, because as I said before, when you look at that in a greater context of what Solomon is saying here, is what's lacking cannot be counted. It really makes you question, like, is wealth truly the way? And like I said, although it does create stability, like, is the wealth itself, the physical, tangible things that you can touch, like, is that really all it is? Or is there something that we're missing? Is there something that we should go deeper and focus on and go down a rabbit hole with? And I think that when you look at it ultimately, just from my personal perspective, I've learned that even in life, like, wealth is something that could be accumulated, but ultimately, everyone, the goal is to learn how to accumulate wealth. It's to learn how to live life. It's to learn how to, have great relationships and all, learning like the principles and learning like wisdom behind operating in those areas. And this when you operate in those areas that you truly get to experience the best of life. So even if you lose something, as unfortunate as that may be, you can always be put in a position where you can get those things back, if not more, by doing and implementing the principles that you have learned over the course of your life. And I think that for me, that has been like a major source of like confidence over the years, particularly in the God that I serve, because, by reading the Bible, like, I've learned a lot about, my faith. I've learned a lot about him, and I've learned more than anything that, our world, our world is always changing, but as long as we continue to have faith and trust in him and know that, he is the greater, to know that, he is the one that we're truly after, like, it changes your entire life, and it kind of takes you out of the mindset of always wanting to accumulate and more or less beginning to trust God that we serve. And although that's something that, I struggle with from time to time, and it's something that I do kind of have a battle with every now and then. When I get too far off of the roads or too far off the path, the Lord always pulls me back and kind of remind me that he's always there. And although there may be hard times, mentally, physically, financially, he's going to sustain me. And so I want to pass that on to you. And yeah, just tell you that, in life, ultimately, everyone, it's not just the things we can physically see. It's not just the things we can physically touch, but it's really found in the intangible things that we learn, the intangible things we experience. And then, like I said, most importantly, the God that we serve, because he is the one that kind of gives us purpose and meaning. He's the one that gives us, value and things of that nature. And when you place those things in him, your life will forever be changed. But here, I want to wrap this up, go through verses 16 and 17, and send you all on your merry way. And so he says here, starting at verse 16, I said in my heart, I have acquired great wisdom, surpassing all who were over Jerusalem before me, and my heart has experienced great wisdom and knowledge, and I have applied my heart to know wisdom and to know madness and folly. I perceive that this is also but a striving after the wind. For in much wisdom is much vexation, and he who increases in knowledge increases in sorrow. And so here, Solomon is simply telling us, right, that he's saying in his heart. And when you look up this word in Hebrew using the Step Bible, it refers to mind, it refers to will and understanding. So this is him thinking to himself, right, that he has acquired great wisdom and surpassing all of those who were before him, right? So this is a man that has amass like a great level of wisdom, right? Which ultimately wisdom is like the skill to do different things in different areas. All right. So you may be skilled in communication. You may know how to talk to people and how to build relationships. You may be skilled in business or work. You may know how to accumulate money and form partnerships and things of that nature. You may be skilled in like a art or like a craft or something like that, or in your career field, and you have the ability to excel in those areas. But regardless, you have the wisdom to do all of those things. And he's saying here that he's wiser than everyone that ruled before him, right? He's wiser than all of the kings that lived in the past, so meaning that ultimately he has more ability than they ever had to be successful in life itself. And he says here that he's hard has also had great experience of wisdom and knowledge. And so knowledge here refers to awareness, of being aware of the things that are in the world, even if you may not have skill in doing them. And we see that all the time because we have access to books, we have access to podcasts, we have access to more information than the world has ever had access to. Knowledge is out there. And while we may be aware of most things, we may not have the ability to say and potentially put our hands on it and grow those things. But because we have awareness that it actually exists, we can at any point in time go out and pursue those ventures, or go out and, make something of the knowledge that we have and turn it into skill or wisdom. And it says here, right, that he applied his heart to know wisdom and to know madness and folly. So not only is Solomon a person who went after, awareness and skill, but he also wanted to know about foolishness. He wanted to know about the things in the world that don't make sense to people. He wanted to know the things of the world that infuriates people. But he says here that this is also a striving after a win. All right. So this here is also vanity. It's after emptiness. It's off of, why go after this thing? Like, what's the end goal or the value behind it? And he simply sums it up by saying in verse 18, for in much wisdom is much vexation, and he who increases in knowledge increases sorrow. And in the word vexation here, by using the Step Bible, it simply says that, it's anger, like it's vanity. Like, this is the things, for in much wisdom is much anger, and he who increases in knowledge increases sorrow. And I guess ultimately what he's saying is that, over the course of life, over the course of the things that we're doing, the more that we learn, the more that we're able to apply in our lives, the more we kind of realize like how useful or useless it can be. Because ultimately, everyone, as I said before, when we go through life, there are always going to be struggles. There's always going to be something new that we have to overcome. There's always going to be something new that we have to do. And even on this journey of like personal growth and self-development, and I'm sure you all can relate, like as you grow over the course of time and after you break these barriers and things that you believe that you had flaws in and you've overcame, there always seems to be like another wall or another ceiling that you have to hit. And ultimately, everyone, that thing could get discouraging. And sometimes I used to say like the years ago that it was better for me to not even know I got all these problems than for me to have to constantly knock these walls down and deal with them. But ultimately, this is the path that life can kind of set you in. And if you get weary and you don't know what the bigger picture is or know why you're doing those things, then you will get lost and you will have this same perspective on life. For in much wisdom is much anger, and he who increases in knowledge increases in sorrow. And I guess that more or less like reinforces what Solomon is saying here, because the more that you kind of know about this world, the more that you know about, the intentions of people, the more that you know about, the way things are going in society and law and politics and all of those other things, it will truly make you sorrowful. Like, this stuff will have you sad or to have you depressed, especially if you don't have the capacity to like turn this stuff off or to change the things that you consume. Like, this stuff really will wear you down. And even when you turn on the news every day, right, you don't really get the best news on the news. There's always something bad going on. There's always a disaster somewhere. There's always some kind of conflict. There's always some kind of situation. When you click over into the channel of politics, there's always issues over there. As we all know, people are going for each other. They're fighting for these seats right now. And so it's particularly crazy. And then when you just look at life as a whole, as I said, when you start to look at like the things that you have to overcome, the places that you have to go, and then just trying to process all of this stuff on a daily basis of where you want to take your life, where you want to take your family, and also what the future and the market and stuff is looking like right now, that stuff there will wear you out. That stuff there will have you toe up. And it's only by, once again, having the right perspective that you're able to kind of overcome this. And so ultimately, that's what Solomon is saying here, and more or less that's what this Bible study is about. It's just, once again, looking at life as a whole, looking at the summary of everything that we kind of deal with on a day-to-day basis, kind of taking in like the cycles and stuff that we deal with and go through, and trying to make sense of this stuff. And of course, Solomon goes deeper into life and particular parts of it as we go through the book of Ecclesiastes. But I believe that this is like a beautiful, beautiful introduction into the larger story and to all of the messages and things that he wants to convey. And so if I had anything that I want to leave you all here with today, because we have hit the 30-minute mark, it's just knowing that life itself is interesting, right? We can, if you look at it from his perspective, life does appear to be a cycle. Life does appear to be, unvaluable. It seems like we're working each day for all of these goals for no really true end. Like there's really no purpose behind the stuff that we're doing. And even if we achieve that purpose on the surface level, there's always going to be something else to work towards. And so the thing that I want to leave you here today is that ultimately, you have to find something greater that supersedes all of those things, that goes far beyond your goals, it goes beyond your dreams, it goes beyond your vision. Because if you put your mind and your heart on something that is intangible, if you put your heart and mind on something that is everlasting and something that is never going to go away, then ultimately you're going to achieve everything that you're going after, and you're going to find fulfillment in all of those things. And ultimately for me, even before I even going down this road of ministry and just reading this book in general, it led me to the conclusion that ultimately God is the everlasting thing that we're searching for. Like God is the one that we're trying to make sense out of. And it's when we begin to walk with God and we begin to truly have a relationship with him that we'll find meaning and fulfillment in all that we do, even if we have bad times. Because ultimately, everyone, we're going to have these struggles anyway. We're going to struggle in our work. We're going to struggle in our relationships. We're going to struggle with our own identities and things that we think we should be, we should do, and we should become. But ultimately, God is the only constant, like in all of those things. And he brings it into perspective where you're able to look at life. You're able to look at the cycles that we see in nature and even in our own lives and begin to truly appreciate them for what they are, for the challenges that they bring, and then ultimately the fulfillment and the levels of closest that they're going to bring to us through God. And so ultimately, if I could leave with anything today, it would be that, focus on the one that doesn't fade away. Focus on the living God, the true God, and believe in his son, Jesus. And ultimately, like the thing of going, I know that sounds cliche, that sounds churchy, but ultimately, everyone, I'm here to tell you, like, that's literally like what it is. I'm telling you, because when you look at life, like that is the thing that makes the most sense. And I can tell you that my life has grown tremendously because of that belief. And that is every time I go through Ecclesiastes. And it's funny because I didn't study this or anything before I popped on. I just like walked through this, and it kind of brought that into perspective for me once again. Like, of contemplating my life, contemplating, providing for my family, providing for the people that I love, and, just being a better person for the people that God has placed in my life. And ultimately, it's brought me back to the reality that, anything outside of him doesn't really have any lasting value, doesn't have any lasting enjoyment. It doesn't really have true meaning. But it's when you find your meaning in him, your identity in him, when you find like peace in him and love and all those other things, that life itself will make sense, and you'll truly love and enjoy the stuff that you do. And then more than anything else, he will give you the peace, everyone, the peace that they say at church that the world can't give or the world can't take away, to, endure all of the circumstances that you're going through and simply enjoy being a part of the process. But with that being said, y'all, that's pretty much it. I don't really have anything else. Once again, I want to thank you all for joining this journey with me, for being in this Bible study session with your boy and walking through Ecclesiastes chapter 1. And as I said before, I definitely want to start opening it up to more Bible study sessions like this, because I think that sitting down and going through the Bible verse by verse is really the best way. And I think it's also helpful to kind of see how this process goes, because this isn't just something that I could do as a pastor or religious leaders in general could do, but this is something that you could do in your everyday life. And I'm telling you, like, as you start to go through the Bible and you start to look at it and read it like this and truly grow and become curious with the word itself, like, it really will change your life. You'll start to see your life and all of these people and all of these quotes, and you'll be able to, apply those things to your life using the wisdom that God gives you so that you can have the best possible outcomes and ultimately have a close relationship with Him, because that's really what our faith is all about, everyone. It's not following a set of rules. It's not just, being forced to live a certain way or being judged, because God is not, that's not His character, but ultimately He just wants us to love Him, to love each other, and enjoy the life that He has freely given us. And you simply start that process and that journey by, accepting Jesus and, reading the Bible and learning what our faith and what this relationship is truly about. But anyway, that's pretty much it. I don't want to hold you all on here anymore. I just want to say thank you for tuning in with your boy. Thank you for, popping in with me on this Saturday morning. I pray you all have an amazing day. And I can't wait to have more future Bible study sessions with you all. So more to come on that stuff. But in the meantime, enjoy your Saturday. Like I said, get outside, enjoy the world, enjoy the day, enjoy the God that you serve, the people around you, and continue to be the amazing people that God has created you to be. With that being said, take care, be blessed, and go out there and do what you do. Peace.